Folks, have you ever wondered, since electromagnetic catapult systems can successfully launch aircraft from aircraft carriers, greatly improving the operational efficiency and payload capacity of carrier-based aircraft, can they be used to launch other things, for example, strategic missiles that also require a long preparation time for launch, and sometimes have to sacrifice the warhead's explosive load to carry more fuel and increase their range? After the 2015 Victory Day parade, some people said that this had proven that the gap between the Chinese military and the US military was only in quantity, while technically and in terms of combat systems, China was already in the leading position. Some well-known bloggers even claimed that China was 100 years ahead, triggering a debate between two camps, the so-called patriotic camp and the independent thinking camp, although the claim of being 100 years ahead lacks any valid proof. The overreaction of the latter camp was no different from insulting someone's ancestors. Think about it, a normal person's reaction to such a statement would be, leading, sure. That makes sense, but isn't leading by a century a bit of an exaggeration? The key point here is leading. We would first acknowledge the premise of being in the lead and then discuss whether the number is reliable. Moreover, the West leads in some areas and China leads in others. This is perfectly normal. You can't say that praising the West's leading areas is independent thinking with high cognition, while being proud of China's leading areas is brainwashed and lacking common sense. Yet the latter camp, in their overreaction, used the criticism of the 100 years Figueredo completely deny the premise of China being in the lead. It's as if because the 100 years claim is exaggerated and unfounded, then the idea of China leading is just nonsense from those profiting from patriotism. What does this show? It shows that what these people are really upset about isn't the 100 years figure, but the word leading itself. In other words, from their perspective, saying 100 years is no different from saying 10 years or 5 years. The key is that China shouldn't be said to be leading at all. Their core logic is, how could China possibly succeed in something that the United States, which is rich and has been fighting wars for nearly a century, couldn't get right? But believe it or not, there have been quite a few such unbelievable things, and they started decades ago. For example, I know of a domestic product that's incredibly impressive, a super awesome Air Force watch that even foreigners save up money to come to China to buy. You might not believe it, but this watch is a huge hit overseas, with counterfeits popping up everywhere. Many foreigners are obsessed with it. They save up specifically, fly to China, and come solely to buy it. In the watch collector's circle, it's a must-have item. So what exactly is this watch? It's the Seagull 1963 aviation chronograph, affectionately known as the 1963 in collector circles. The story behind this watch is quite inspiring. Back in the 1960s, all the precision timing watches used by China's Air Force were imported. Not only did this cost a lot of foreign exchange, but it also left China vulnerable to external constraints. The country realized, no, we have to make our own. In 1961, a top-secret mission codenamed 300 was assigned to the Tianjin watch factory. The most skilled masters there, lacking advanced equipment, used the most basic methods, measuring and calculating bit by bit with calipers, and finally conquered this tough challenge. What's even more impressive is that instead of using the simple structures popular at the time, they directly adopted the more complex and accurate column wheel mechanism, which was only equipped on high-end Swiss watches. This was all to ensure that China's pilots could keep precise time in the sky. So this watch isn't just for telling time. It was also a talisman for the Air Force back then, the most awesome Chinese watch in the eyes of foreigners, and a source of pride for us as a shining example of domestic craftsmanship and unyielding spirit. The same unbelievable logic applies to the electromagnetic catapult on China's Fujian warship. Before the successful launch of 3 types of carrier-based aircraft, this time on a high-end Q&A platform, many self-proclaimed enlightened independent thinkers made sarcastic remarks about China's technical route, claiming that China had picked the wrong tech tree, wasted taxpayers' money, and arguing that if the Americans could have done it, they would have. So how could China? To put it in a popular online formula, if even Apple, referring to the US's advanced technology, couldn't get their aircraft carrier to do it, how could a domestic Chinese aircraft carrier possibly succeed? Impossible. Absolutely impossible. These people do nothing but worship their holy grail in a world where their minds have been colonized, never stopping to think. Since China's 6th-generation fighter jet made a public appearance more than half a year ago, allowing ordinary people to take photos, has Washington's Apple building the White House and Pentagon showcased any actual progress in equipment projects to counter the shock that Chinese weapons have brought to the world? No, back then, all they had was a 6th-generation fighter jet in PPTs after the 2015 Victory Day parade. Still no just the PPT 6th Gen fighter, and after the recent successful catapult tests on the Fujian, still nothing but PPTs. As a Chinese proverb goes, whether it's a mule or a horse, take it out for a run. In just over half a year, China has showcased its capabilities from conventional to strategic weapons, from air to sea. Why is the US still running with PPTs? From a narrow, purely technical perspective, China has rolled out the finished product, while the US has been dragging its feet. Is it wrong to say China is leading, not 10 years, 8 years, or 100 years, even half a year? Is leading by half a year not considered leading? From a broader, qualitative perspective, under their system, they've been ahead for decades but achieved nothing substantial. Under our system, we went from having nothing, overcame technical blockades, and finally caught up and surpassed them. Does this not exactly prove that the Communist Party of China has always represented the development requirements of China's advanced productive forces and the advanced nature of our system? So I can't help but ask, is it really that hard to admit that there's a gap between the US and China today? I advise some people to admit it now. First step. Follow me and say, I'm grateful that technology and civilization are in the hands of the East. If you refuse to admit it, the stakes will only get higher and higher in the future. Why? As many bloggers have analyzed, with the electromagnetic catapult, the Fujian's combat system becomes more complete, its combat radius increases, the sortie efficiency of carrier-based aircraft improves, and the types of carrier-based aircraft expand. But what will really trigger the S is that strike range now covers the second island chain. This means that the SS once overwhelming advantage over the Chinese Navy in the second island chain can now be said to be a thing of the past. Of course, in the overall balance of power between China and the US in the Western Pacific, the US still has a quantitative advantage, but to be honest, while a quantitative advantage might be the US's trump card against other opponents, when the opponent is China, this quantitative advantage is practically worthless for the US because China has 56 100,000-ton class shipyards and a shipbuilding capacity of 40 million tons, which are 56 times and 10 times that of the US respectively. To be precise, what the US has is not a quantitative advantage, but a stock advantage. What's more, among their existing aircraft carriers, how many have been deployed at sea in the past 2 years? And how many have been in repair shops on and off for half a year or more? In contrast, China has launched one aircraft carrier every 5 years on average. From the Liaoning to the Fujian. Rumors have it that the O4 and O5, possibly nuclear powered, may make their debut sometime around 2030. So from a developmental perspective, it is not the US but China that truly has the advantage in quantity and speed. I believe the Americans themselves know this better than anyone else. Competing with China in speed and quantity is truly a losing strategy. One side has been stagnant for more than a decade, relying on past achievements. The other has grown from being absolutely suppressed, being able to deter the former regionally in just over a decade. This reflects a trend of decline for one and rise for the other, yet some people in China still insist on being stubborn after the Fujian's catapult success, claiming the US has more ships, nuclear power, bigger tonnage, so they're still the best. This is a failure to view issues from a developmental perspective. It's like a dog that barks aggressively at anyone who opposes its owner. Having only seen its owner bully a few weaklings, the owner needs to assess whether the opponent is a weakling or a powerful boss and act accordingly. But the dog doesn't think that deeply, it just assumes everyone opposing its owner is a weakling and barks away. Little does it know that when the owner faces a boss they can't handle, the more the dog barks, the more embarrassed the owner becomes. If the US doesn't have the advantage in speed and quantity, what about technology? Unfortunately, it's probably too late. It's not that their Ford class can develop an electromagnetic catapult system as good as or better than the Fujian's, but by the time they do, China will likely have made new breakthroughs in other areas. This is what we call falling behind at the starting line, means falling behind every step of the way. To understand this, beyond aircraft carriers, instead of only focusing on the advantages that an electromagnetic catapult brings to a carrier and the carrier's combat doctrine and future development direction, we should ask, why has the Fujian's electromagnetic catapult succeed while the Ford classes has been plagued with problems? Where exactly did the US start to lose? Here's the answer. Technically, it failed to successfully transition its energy sector. It lost the energy strategy game. Institutional-wise, it's the same old partisan bickering, a flawed system that's inherently backward. In terms of level, it's almost comparable to the factional strife during China's Ming dynasty. The factions in late Ming fought for the emperor's favor while acknowledging Ming's rule. America's Democrats and Republicans, donkeys and elephants, fight for more resources for their respective interest groups while acknowledging the capitalist path. Currently, the mainstream explanation for why the Fujian succeeded and the Ford failed is that the Fujian uses medium voltage direct current MVDC, while the Ford uses medium voltage alternating current MVAC, which is inherently complex and prone to malfunctions, a wrong technical route. But have you ever thought, with America's legacy of leading the electrical revolution and its more than 20-year head start in developing shipborne electromagnetic catapults, couldn't they correct their technical route if it was wrong? If this had happened in China, we would have admitted the mistake and fixed it. After all, no country achieved success in scientific research overnight. Didn't China abandon many tank and aircraft models halfway through development and they realized the route was wrong? Yet the US has stubbornly stuck to its wrong path for years, stumbling along, getting bruised and battered, but still insisting, I'm fine, I can do it. Why? because they lacked talent and investment in this field when the Ford class first adopted electromagnetic catapults. A major backdrop was that since the 1973 oil embargo, energy security had plagued several U.S. administrations. To achieve an energy transition, the U.S. once focused its national energy strategy on electricity-based new energy, accumulating policies, technologies, and industrial experience. It introduced energy tax acts in 1978 and 1992 to vigorously support renewable energy enterprises, established numerous national laboratories for photovoltaic, wind, and biofuel research, and trained a large number of electrical engineering talents. During the Obama administration, there was even an explosive growth in the new energy industry. At that time, the U.S. Secretary of Energy was not an ordinary civil servant, but Ernest Moniz, one of America's top physicists and energy scientists, specifically in the field of electromagnetic equipment. During Obama's tenure, the U.S. filed an average of 10 patents annually related to electromagnetic rail launch, focusing on pulse inductance, pulse power control, rail structures and materials, and lubrication and cooling methods. This shows that the U.S. was making progress in power supply and materials back then. However, patents related to rapid charging, discharging, and energy storage were almost non-existent. If they had continued on that path, it might have only been a matter of time before they made breakthroughs in the latter area. But then Trump came along. After Trump took office, new energy became yesterday's flame in the U.S., and the Secretary of Energy was replaced by Rick Perry, a bureaucratic sycophant. Why? Because Trump's main financial backers were from the traditional fossil fuel industry. Additionally, the abundant shale oil and gas resources after 2009 turned the U.S. from an energy importer into an exporter, allowing it to make money while lying down. So why bother with new energy? As a result, the industrial chain and technology have stagnated since Trump's first term, with no policy support whatsoever. Think about it. Supporting new energy would firstly allow the new energy industry to grow and seize market share, leaving Trump unable to explain to the traditional energy giants who funded his campaign. Secondly, following the old rule, blindly opposing anything strongly supported by the Democratic Party. In capitalist countries, without capital support, an industry has no competitiveness. Even if there are insightful people who recognize the long-term importance of an uncompetitive industry today, who would be willing to work in it? Or who would be willing to go against the current government? Thus, talents in related fields began to drain in large numbers. Even at Tesla, the last remaining major new energy company, the majority of engineers are of Chinese descent. Moreover, one of the reasons for the rift between Musk and Trump was that Musk donated hundreds of millions to support Trump's election. But Trump's policies still failed to provide adequate support for the new energy industry. Electric vehicle subsidies were cut, while the military and traditional fossil fuel industries received more funding. This shows that this is an interest chain even Musk couldn't shake. How could other American entrepreneurs with far less influence than Musk be willing to invest money in an unpopular field? As a result, the Ford class's electromagnetic catapult program fell into an awkward predicament. It lacked engineers with a serious generational gap, and Trump was unwilling to allocate sufficient funds, relying on the meager annual budget to abandon the existing route and start over was nothing short of a pipe dream. Yet they couldn't let the president think they were accomplishes nothing year after year, wasting taxpayers' money. Naturally, they had no choice but to keep going down the wrong path. Continuing the project meant receiving some funding each year. Abandoning it and starting over would have resulted in zero funding from Trump. This is why the U.S. military claims that the Ford class cannot launch the F-35 due to historical legacy issues. The Ford's design predates the F-35 program, making them incompatible. Outsiders may not understand the true meaning behind this excusing dismiss it as a face-saving statement, but the officials in the White House know full well compatibility is possible, but it would require more money. Lots of it without additional funding. They just have to make do with launching F-18 Hornets. After all, even electromagnetic catapult launched Hornets are unique in the world. Still sounds impressive when announced. The result is a case of the emperor's new clothes when no one dared to expose it. They could boast about having an exclusive technology. Now China has stepped forward to expose it, and comparisons have proven two things. First, the Ford's high failure rate. Second, China can launch 5th-generation fighter jets, but the US cannot. The truth has finally come to light. The emperor was indeed naked all along. As for why the Fujian succeeded, I can say this. Even if China had chosen the wrong technical route, we would still have developed a viable system before the US. Again, this can be explained from both technical and institutional perspectives. Technically, China today has truly mastered all aspects of electrical technology. Our success is due to having the world's most powerful power system and industrial chain. Where did China's military electromagnetic catapult originate? The answer lies in high-speed maglev train technology. In 2004, China developed its first set of electromagnetic linear motion systems with independent intellectual property rights, initially used in high-speed trains, subsequently benefiting from 3 years of maglev technology practice. The Chinese army developed a vehicle-mounted U-of-rail electromagnetic catapult in 2007. For example, the main challenges in developing shipborne electromagnetic catapults are energy storage and rapid charging, discharging. The power consumption of electromagnetic catapults is a major challenge for conventionally powered aircraft carriers. This is precisely why the US only deployed them on nuclear-powered carriers. The instantaneous energy consumption of 3 or 4 catapults operating simultaneously is equivalent to the electricity used by a small city in 1 hour. The forced energy storage devices, a key component, have a charging power of approximately 4 megawatts. Considering losses, charging 3 to 4 such devices simultaneously and a total power demand of 12 to 16 megawatts, roughly equivalent to the power of a single large wind turbine. Adding the power consumption of other onboard equipment, the total power of the aircraft carrier must be several dozen megawatts to meet the demand. Otherwise, after just launch cycles, the entire carrier would lose power, rendering it ineffective. While this technology is top secret in both the US and China, most popular science content about carrier electromagnetic catapults is vague when it comes to these details. Those who know something dare not speak openly, and can only make vague comparisons, stating that the Ford class uses flywheel energy storage dome, while the Fujian class uses supercapacitors, resulting in higher efficiency and stability. So why doesn't the US use supercapacitors? Because they don't like them? No, the truth is they lack the prerequisite technical accumulation in the electromagnetic field. Over the years, China has developed almost all electricity-related industrial chains to the highest level, from ultra-high voltage power transmission and high-speed rail subways to new energy vehicles. Take supercapacitors, for example. They have been practically tested and verified on high-speed rails and subways for more than a decade. Rapid charging, discharging technology mainly depends on the charge-discharge rate of energy storage devices, whether batteries or capacitors. In recent years, the fast charging function of domestic new energy vehicles has become increasingly advanced. Surely no one thinks that technical accumulation in civilian products cannot be fed back into the military industry. Or perhaps the military first developed and verified the stability of this technology before making it available for civilian use. We may never know for sure. However, when it comes to fast charging, discharging of batteries, the team led by academician Ma Weiming from the Naval University of Engineering, known as the father of China's electromagnetic catapults, has been conducting research. In his paper Research Status and Challenges of Electromagnetic Launch Technology, published in the Transactions of China Electrotechnical Society, it is mentioned that as early as 2014, his team developed a lithium iron phosphate battery with a 7.5C rate, capable of discharging all its energy in just 50 seconds. Whether they have researched other energy storage technologies in recent years with higher energy density and better adaptability to ambient temperatures, such as flow batteries, we can only speculate. Let the Americans guess, but we can make one prediction. Both the Fujian's supercapacitors and the Ford's flywheels belong to high power density but low energy density technologies. In contrast, batteries have relatively high energy density among current energy storage technologies and are more cost effective, especially when launching large, heavy equipment that requires the instantaneous release of massive energy for propulsion. The power grid itself cannot withstand the load if directly powered. Therefore, two things are essential. First, a reasonable high-density energy storage device to ensure sufficient energy is always available. Second, a reasonable high-power discharge device to release the stored energy within the required time. Thus, a hybrid energy storage system based on batteries and supercapacitors is almost the optimal solution under current technical conditions. Battery packs stably provide large capacity energy, while supercapacitor packs deliver instantaneous high power. This combination will likely be widely adopted in China's military equipment in the future. After all, China has already developed the Type 100 new energy tank capable of operating in plateau combat environments. This indicates that the major drawbacks of batteries in civilian new energy vehicles, such as combustion risks when damaged, instability at low temperatures, and the trade-off between capacity and size, have been addressed with better solutions than in previous years. This reminds me of people who have been saying over the years, "I lines buy a domestic electric car when the military starts using new energy vehicles," now that new energy tanks capable of silent engagement have been unveiled. Will these people keep their promises? If not, that's fine, but if they continue to be stubborn, as I mentioned earlier, the stakes will only get higher. Did you know that the Naval University of Engineering, where academician Ma Weiming teaches, a dedicated major called Electromagnetic Launch Engineering? Note: it's electromagnetic launch engineering, not electromagnetic catapult engineering. Electromagnetic catapult technology is just an important application of electromagnetic launch technology in launching large, relatively low-speed objects. This means that launching carrier-based aircraft via electromagnetic catapult is just the beginning. In the future, technologies like electromagnetic railguns and electromagnetic missile boosters will likely reach maturity soon. Of course, this doesn't mean direct technical transfer, but there will be significant technical reference value, especially for electromagnetic missile launch. Do you think this technology can also contribute to the concept of 24/7 readiness? Compared to current conventional chemical energy launch and hydropneumatic catapult methods, electromagnetic missile launch would completely solve several problems. First, ablation of the launch device. If the missile's initial kinetic energy is provided by the electromagnetic thrust of the launch system, and the missile's engine ignites only after it has moved a certain distance away from the launch system, the problem of launch system lifespan damage caused by propellant combustion will be eliminated. Second, improved stealth performance. Currently, whether missiles are launched via hot launch or cold launch, hot launch produces flames and cold launch generates smoke, increasing the chance of detection by enemy radar or satellites and giving enemy missile defense systems more reaction time. With electromagnetic launch technology, this exposure risk will be greatly reduced. We can even imagine if air-launched or submarine-launched missiles can also use electromagnetic boost launch. The advantage of "I can see you, but you can't see me, I can hit you, but you can't hit me" in beyond visual range combat will be further enhanced. Imagine using the J-10 to fight the Rafale, then that would be thrilling. Third, as we mentioned earlier, reduce launch preparation time and increased missile combat radius. This is easy to understand. With energy pre-stored in the electromagnetic launch system, the time required for fuel injection during launch preparation will be shortened. At the same time, missile range can be extended without increasing its weight. Therefore, whether it's liquid-fueled or solid-fueled missiles, ground-based or air-based missiles. If China can achieve two goals in the future: first, reducing the weight and size of electromagnetic launch systems, especially energy storage devices; second, achieving high kinetic energy and low overload in electromagnetic launch technology, then it's foreseeable that, marked by the Fujian's successful electromagnetic launch of 3 types of carrier-based aircraft, the US's backwardness compared to China will not be limited to launching 5th-generation fighter jets via electromagnetic catapult. Instead, it will be a comprehensive backwardness in electromagnetic launch technology. Of course, the US still holds a stock advantage across the ocean, but the future of electromagnetic energy weapons clearly lies with China. This is what we call momentum. How did we achieve this momentum? Not by sitting around arguing with the West every day about who is winning, but by taking steady steps over decades. From building super-large hydropower stations and large-scale photovoltaic industries, to establishing a national power grid that reaches deep into mountain valleys, to vigorously promoting the new energy vehicle industrial chain despite global smears and doubts, and investing huge policy subsidies to support it. If we take any of these achievements and place them in the US or Western countries, I can't help but ask again, why, in 2025, do these established capitalist powers still experience nationwide or provincial blackouts due to power shortages or line failures? Why, during extreme cold or heat waves, do they have to restrict people's right to set their air conditioners to a certain temperature? Why, despite Musk's foresight, can he still not shake the vested interest groups? The answer lies in 3 points. First, capitalists will not do anything that is unprofitable. Second, partisans are happy to sabotage the opponent's policies. Third, government inefficiency prevents them from successfully implementing long-term plans even if they want to. The flip side of all this is precisely the advantages and conveniences we enjoy today. If we let facts and achievements speak, this is the best proof of our system's superiority.